Jimmy Haslam's fingerprints are all over this. The firing of Kevin Stefanski, the promotion of Andrew Berry, and the quiet exit of Paul DePodesta weren't isolated moves, they were a calculated reset by ownership. By eliminating conflicting voices at the top, Haslam has created a streamlined power structure where Berry now controls everything from the draft board to coaching hires.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The message is clear. Cleveland is done hedging. And with Shedeur Sanders on the horizon, this realignment is all about maximizing his pathway to become the face of the franchise by 2026. This top-down shift has transformed Cleveland's trajectory. Berry's promotion isn't just a reward, it's a mandate. He's expected to deliver long-term answers, starting with quarterback stability. If Sanders is the plan, Berry has the authority and clean runway to execute it. From hiring an offensive coordinator who fits Sanders' style to retooling the roster around his timeline. After years of disjointed leadership and quarterback churn, the Browns are now betting big on alignment. And Shedeur Sanders is at the center of that bet. Kevin Stefanski has been fired. Andrew Berry has been promoted. And now, all signs point toward Shedeur Sanders being the next big move in one of the most calculated restructures Cleveland has ever attempted. This isn't just about a coaching change, it's an all-out power shift inside the Cleveland Browns. In a matter of days, the entire structure of the team was flipped on its head. Stefanski is out. Paul DePodesta, the longtime chief strategy officer and analytics architect, is gone. And Andrew Berry now sits just one rung below ownership as the team's president. The guy once tasked with just managing the roster now controls it all, coaching, culture, and everything in between. This kind of move doesn't happen randomly. It's not about damage control. It's not about scapegoating one guy after a tough season. This is strategic. And the timeline behind it? Hard to ignore. Because all of this lines up perfectly with the potential arrival of Shedeur Sanders in 2026. That's the name circulating, loudly. And while he's not on the Browns roster yet, the way this restructure is playing out, it looks like it's being built specifically with a player like Sanders in mind. Let's walk it back. Kevin Stefanski was supposed to be the guy who brought Cleveland stability. And to be fair, he did, for a moment. He led the team to their first playoff win in almost 2 decades. He brought a methodical, structured system to an organization known more for chaos than consistency. But after 4 seasons, the results stalled. The offense, especially, became predictable. Quarterback play regressed. And the chemistry between coach and front office clearly cooled. So they cut ties. Fast. Stefanski was fired without the usual drawn-out drama. It was swift, decisive. And that's because ownership was already prepared to move. The real pivot happened with Berry. By promoting him to team president, Jimmy Haslam and ownership effectively said, "This is the guy. This is the vision. We're done splitting power." That's a massive shift for Cleveland, which has spent years letting different silos pull the team in different directions. Analytics under DePodesta. Football instincts from the coaching staff. Roster strategy from Berry. Now, all of it flows through one office. And if Berry is being trusted to build the team his way, then the next moves are going to reflect what he values most. Long-term vision, developmental structure, and quarterback planning that isn't rushed, reckless, or reactionary. That's where Shedeur Sanders fits in. The Browns aren't going to magically fix their QB situation overnight. Deshaun Watson's future remains uncertain. Backup options are just that, temporary. But Berry now has a clean window. 2 seasons. Enough time to slowly retool the roster, overhaul the coaching staff, and create the right environment for a new quarterback to enter and actually thrive. That's something Cleveland hasn't had in decades. Quarterbacks don't just struggle here, they drown. Draft picks flame out. Veterans regress. The system is rarely ready to support them. But now, with Berry in full control, that system is being built in advance. That matters. Because Sanders isn't the kind of prospect you throw into a broken situation and hope for the best. He needs structure. He needs coaching. He needs a roster that's already positioned to support a young QB, not scramble to save one. Berry's promotion makes that possible. With DePodesta gone, the analytics-heavy approach that's dominated Cleveland's identity since 2016 is taking a back seat. Berry still values data, he's not ditching it, but now he has the authority to integrate it into a more balanced, traditional football strategy. One that prioritizes coaching fit, development timelines, and quarterback-focused planning. That's already showing in the expected changes at offensive coordinator and possibly the entire coaching staff. Stefanski's departure didn't just free up the head coaching spot, it opened the door for Barry to bring in someone whose vision directly supports a young quarterback's growth. Someone offensive-minded. Someone who isn't afraid to build around one guy instead of adapting week to week. Someone who can build a playbook that fits Sanders' strengths, not just recycle an old one. Because here's the thing, this isn't theoretical anymore. The pieces are moving now. Stefanski is out. Barry is in control. DePodesta is out. The next step is selecting the kind of head coach that shows Cleveland is serious about this quarterback plan. If they hire someone with a history of developing young quarterbacks, it's game on. And make no mistake, the Shedeur Sanders timeline makes perfect sense. 2026 isn't just an arbitrary date. It gives Cleveland time to get the roster in place, get the coaching staff aligned, and give the quarterback an environment he can walk into without having to be the savior on day one. It gives Barry time to execute this plan deliberately, not reactively. And this rebuild isn't just a theory, it's already underway. Ownership has made its choice. There's no longer a divided vision. No more power sharing. No more split philosophies. Just Andrew Barry with the full weight of the franchise behind him, leading this into what could be the most quarterback-centric rebuild the Browns have ever attempted. But it has to work. Because the risks here are massive. If Barry hires the wrong coach, if the quarterback plan falls apart, if the roster fails to come together, there's no one else to blame. No analytics team. No head coach. No legacy staff. It's Barry's team now. And that means every move from this point on will be viewed through the lens of whether it leads to success at the quarterback position. The stakes are clear and so is the timeline. Cleveland wants to finally be done playing musical chairs at QB. And they're willing to tear down everything to make that happen. Which brings us back to Sanders. Whether or not he ultimately ends up in Cleveland, the infrastructure being built right now looks like it's designed for a player just like him. Young, boys, development focused, capable of being the long-term answer. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when a franchise finally decides to build for a quarterback, not around the absence of one. For once, Cleveland isn't chasing stability, it's building it. Let us know your take. Was firing Stefanski the beginning of something real, or just another chapter in a story that never changes? Is Barry the right person to build a quarterback-first team? And is Sanders the future, or just the next name in a long line of what-ifs? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like if you're watching this unfold with cautious hope, and subscribe if you want every update on the NFL's boldest reboot. Because what's happening in Cleveland isn't subtle anymore. It's intentional. And the future? It's coming fast. The Cleveland Browns have lit the fuse, and now there's no turning back. The firing of Kevin Stefanski, the abrupt departure of Paul DePodesta, and the full-on elevation of Andrew Barry to team president have transformed the franchise's power structure overnight. This isn't a tweak. This is a detonation. The Haslams didn't quietly move pieces around, they cleared the chessboard. And now, everything from the coaching philosophy to the quarterback depth chart is up for redefinition. And at the center of that redefinition is one clear pivot: Shedeur Sanders. No, he hasn't been drafted yet. No, he hasn't officially been linked to Cleveland through any formal channels. But the writing is all over the walls of Berea. The entire timing of this overhaul, who's been let go, who's been promoted, what kind of vision Barry is being trusted to execute, lines up with one goal: preparing to build around a young franchise quarterback in 2026. Because here's the reality, the Browns have tried every other method. They've drafted early-round quarterbacks and watched them flame out in dysfunctional environments. They've traded for veterans with baggage. They've trusted the analytics, they've ignored the analytics. Nothing stuck. Nothing fixed the core issue. And now, for the first time in forever, Cleveland is doing the one thing they've never fully committed to: building an actual development pipeline before the quarterback even arrives. Let's break it down. Kevin Stefanski was never a disaster. He brought respectability to the Browns when they needed it most. But his offensive system, heavy on timing, rigid on reads, hit its ceiling. It didn't adapt well to injuries. It didn't maximize talent. And it absolutely wasn't set up to nurture a young quarterback through the growing pains of the modern NFL. His dismissal wasn't personal. It was structural. Barry and ownership made it clear. If the future of this franchise is going to be tied to the development of a quarterback, they need a head coach who can develop one. Enter the coaching search. This hire will define Andrew Barry's legacy. Period. Not the Watson deal. Not the early draft wins. This coaching decision will either set the Browns up for a smooth launch into 2026, or crash them into another wasted cycle. PD, and based on everything we know, Barry isn't looking for a steady hand. He's looking for an architect. Someone who can design a quarterback-friendly system, tailor schemes to specific skill sets, and create an environment where a young QB like Sanders isn't just surviving but thriving. This is where Paul DePodesta's departure becomes even more significant. DePodesta, for all his influence, represented a very specific way of thinking: data-dominant, probability-weighted, long-term calculated risk. But in football, especially with quarterbacks, development isn't always linear. It's emotional. It's mental. It's about fit, chemistry, and coaching rhythm. Barry still values data. He's not swinging blindly into football feel. But his promotion signals a shift toward balance. Intuition plus numbers. Scouting plus modeling. And when it comes to quarterback development, that balance matters. Interview. That's why Shedeur Sanders makes sense for this new direction. He's not raw. He's not a project. He's developed his mechanics, built a strong football IQ, and demonstrated leadership in high-pressure situations. But like any young quarterback, he needs support. A system that won't expect perfection on day one. A staff that will meet him where he is. A front office that doesn't blink after a couple of rookie mistakes. With Barry calling the shots, Cleveland finally has the potential to be that place. And it's not just about the quarterback room. Everything is being restructured with that 2026 timeline in mind. Look at the roster. There are holes to fill, sure, but there's also a core in place. The offensive line has a foundation. The defense has top-tier pieces. There's a real opportunity to spend the next 2 off-seasons shaping the team around the future quarterback, instead of scrambling to fix everything once he gets there. It's a reverse-engineered rebuild. Start at the top, executive leadership. Then coaching. Then system. Then scheme. Then weapons. Then quarterback. For the first time in decades, the Browns are building backwards from the future. And honestly, it's long overdue. This fanbase has been asked to believe in quick fixes for years. Every quarterback was supposed to be the one. Every coach was sold as the culture guy. Every offseason brought a new vision, then another collapse. But now the Browns are signaling something different. They're not talking playoffs. They're not hyping up the next big free agent move. They're not making noise in the media. They're doing something that actually looks like a real plan, laying the groundwork quietly for a sustainable future built around quarterback development. That's how winning teams are built. Look around the league. The franchises that win don't just draft a quarterback and pray. They prepare. They set up coaching staffs, playbooks, and rosters that allow young quarterbacks to grow. Not all of them hit, but when they do, the system is already in place. The Browns, for once, seem to be learning that. Andrew Barry has the trust of ownership. He's no longer navigating through layers of front office noise. He's not collaborating with analytics voices that have veto power. He's not answering to a head coach with different priorities. He is the direction now. And everything that happens next, every draft pick, every assistant coach, every contract restructure, will reflect the quarterback plan. That's how important this moment is. Because if Barry gets it right, if he hires the right coach, builds the right system, and lands the right quarterback, then this won't just be a reset. It'll be the start of the Browns' first real era of stability in over 20 years. But if he gets it wrong, there's no one else to blame. That's the trade-off with power. Barry asked for the wheel. Now he has to drive. And he has 2 years to build a runway for Shedeur Sanders or whoever the next guy is. 2 years to create an offense that doesn't just look good on a whiteboard, but works on Sundays. 2 years to change the story in Cleveland from quarterback graveyard to quarterback incubator. He knows what's at stake. Ownership knows what's at stake. And fans? They're done with hope. They want proof. We're deep in the Cleveland Browns' biggest reset in modern memory. No glitz, no gimmicks, just a clean break from the past. Stefanski's out. Barry's in full control. And the roster, the front office, the entire culture is being recalibrated for one purpose: setting up the quarterback of the future. And let's not dance around it anymore. That quarterback might very well be Shedeur Sanders. Whether or not his name is on the Browns' draft card in 2026, this entire shakeup has cleared the path for someone like him. A young, high-upside, franchise-defining quarterback who won't just plug into a system, but have one built around him from the ground up. And let's be real, this isn't something Cleveland has ever done right. For decades, the Browns have been the NFL's cautionary tale for quarterback development. They've drafted busts, mismanaged talent, changed schemes mid-season, and cycled through coaches faster than some teams cycle through offensive plays. They never gave a young QB time. They never built around their strengths. They threw them into chaos and expected miracles. But this time they're doing the opposite. This is a slow build. A structural rebuild. A top-down reset with a 2-year timeline. Not to win now. Not to chase headlines. But to finally get the quarterback situation right. And that timeline just so happens to align with when Shedeur Sanders would be projected to start in the NFL. Now that's not confirmation. That's not a guarantee. But let's look at the signs. You don't fire a head coach who made the playoffs twice unless you have a very specific long-term strategy. You don't let go of your chief strategy officer, the guy who brought in Deshaun Watson who pushed the analytics model forward, unless you're pivoting hard. And you definitely don't give your general manager full presidential power unless you want one man making all the football calls for the next 5 years. This is not a patch job. This is an identity transplant. And Shedeur's potential arrival is the logical next step. He's got pedigree. He's got poise. He's got polish. And most importantly, he's got time. If Cleveland's front office is truly committed to a 2026 rollout, then they can actually afford to let a young quarterback develop behind the scenes. Let him watch. Let him learn. Let the offensive staff build around him, not on the fly, not in a panic, but before he even takes his first NFL snap. That alone puts him in a better position than any Browns quarterback of the last 20 years. Because again, this isn't about starting Shedeur Sanders tomorrow. It's about creating the conditions where someone like Sanders can be set up to succeed. Think about the kind of infrastructure that would require a head coach who's proven he can develop a young QB, an offensive coordinator who can tailor schemes to maximize movement, spacing, and decision-making, a strong offensive line, playmakers who can win early in routes, a system that emphasizes rhythm and growth over immediate results. That's what this Browns reboot is really about. And it explains every move they've made. Kevin Stefanski, while respected, was ultimately too rigid. His offense didn't evolve with the players. He favored control over creativity. And when things went off script, his scheme often collapsed. That's not the guy you pair with a young quarterback. Andrew Berry knows that. And now he gets to go find the guy who does fit that mold. This next coaching hire is everything. It's not just about personality or locker room presence. It's about the ability to build a full system around a young quarterback with the exact skills someone like Sanders brings to the table. Quick decision-making, mobility, confidence, and leadership. BM Browns jersey games. We've seen what happens when you mismatch talent and scheme. Cleveland's done it for years. They drafted guys like Deshaun Kaiser and Brady Quinn and gave them zero developmental runway. Johnny Manziel? No plan. Baker Mayfield? Scheme changed 3 times before his 3rd year. But if Berry's plan holds and a quarterback like Sanders enters the building in 2026, the Browns will be offering something different for the first time: stability. Think about the impact of that. A quarterback arriving into a franchise with one vision, one voice, and one timeline. A locker room that's already been shaped by the front office for him. Coaches who were hired because they understand how to teach, not just manage. A team that isn't desperate for immediate results because they've been building for this moment. That's what Andrew Berry is constructing. And this is the first time it feels like Cleveland is doing things in the right order. And look, there's going to be resistance. There already is. Some fans are furious Stefanski was let go. Others are skeptical of Berry's draft history or his handling of the Watson trade. And those criticisms are fair. He hasn't been perfect. But what's undeniable is this: Berry has earned the right to own the next era. Not just manage it, own it. That means hiring the head coach. That means reshaping the roster. That means building a pipeline from college scouting to quarterback development. And most importantly, it means not letting the moment dictate the plan, but letting the plan dictate the moment. If the Browns really want to end the cycle, this is the only way. Get the leadership aligned. Build a cohesive identity. And then bring in a quarterback you believe in, and give him a franchise that believes in him back. That's what makes Shedeur Sanders such a compelling figure in this scenario. Not because he's the flashiest name. Not because he's guaranteed to be a top pick. But because he represents what Cleveland has never done before. Pick the guy, build the system, and hand him the keys to something that was actually made for him. 2. And if it's not Shedeur? Fine. It has to be someone. Because that's what this is all about. Berry's promotion isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. And what he does with it between now and 2026 will determine whether this becomes the smartest pivot in Browns history, or just another reboot destined for the same fate. It's all on the table. A new offensive vision. A new quarterback in waiting. This is the Browns' boldest reset yet. And if they finally get it right, the payoff could change everything. And that preparation? It's louder than any draft pick they could make right now. Because when a franchise fires its head coach, promotes the GM to team president, and lets go of its chief strategy officer, all within the same breath, it's not a pivot. It's a declaration. It's saying, we're done tinkering around the edges. We're building something from the ground up. And here's what makes it feel different this time. The Browns aren't scrambling. They're planning. Methodically. Quietly. Strategically. That's not the Cleveland we're used to seeing, right? This isn't the franchise that swings wildly at splash trades or leaks out chaos from the locker room mid-season. There's no leaked shortlist of flashy coaching names. No off-season posturing. Just decisive moves followed by silence. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if they've finally figured out how to think like a real organization. Because Andrew Berry isn't acting like a man trying to save his job. He's acting like someone who's been handed the future and told to make it work. That's a rare kind of power in the NFL. And even rarer in Cleveland. So what comes next? All eyes are on the coaching search. That's the hinge point. Whoever gets hired will be the face of this rebuild. Their system will be the one that either lifts a young quarterback to success, or buries another one in the basement of failed Browns prospects. That's why the name Shedeur Sanders keeps floating around. Not because he's locked in, not because it's a guarantee, but because the type of quarterback he is matches the direction the Browns are clearly heading in. You don't clean house this thoroughly just to hand the reins back to a stopgap QB and play it safe. This is a franchise looking for its guy. Its real guy. The kind you invest in 2 years before he ever steps on the field. And if you're a Browns fan, burned by every false dawn, every savior who never saved, it's okay to be skeptical. That's earned. But this time they're not selling you hype. They're not promising wins. They're not trotting out slogans. They're showing you the only thing that ever mattered. A real plan. It's slow. It's quiet. And it might just work. So stay tuned. Because if Cleveland gets this right, 2026 won't just be the debut of a quarterback. It'll be the rebirth of a franchise. Drop your thoughts, hit that like if you're feeling cautiously hopeful, and subscribe for more breakdowns as this wild Browns transformation continues. Something real might finally be happening in Cleveland, and it's starting from the top.